Good evening and welcome to Mindful Life 254. I am your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 14th of the 7th, 2023. Yeah. We are here. Make sure you hit that like button if you are viewing this over there on Instagram. On TikTok, double tap that screen. If you are looking at this on YouTube on the repeat, hit that like button, drop a comment, tell me what you think. You can share the live too, share the video, get it out there to more people if they like this kind of content where we talk about current affairs and what's going on in the country, etc., etc. Michelle Sudan, it's not you alone. I could tell you it's not you alone. Yeah, I couldn't sense that sarcasm there at all, Barry. And you know that's some of the problem, even with almost all of those third parties, because very few of those third parties are actually fresh faces. A lot of those third parties are scorned lovers. I am not calling any specific names and saying they are them, but I'm saying that many of them do fall into that kind of realm of kind of a scorned lover, kind of a sour grapes kind of thing. I remember an election not too long ago, one person for one party that was insulting the next party, it was revealed that actually he attempted to go up for this party. And when they rejected him, he went to the next party. And now he's wholesale insulting no. I mean, maybe that kind of mamagism may work on other people like that, but for me it feels a bit strained for me to stand up and pretend like I don't see these things happening, pretend like I don't know that this person was a supporter of all the things that you say are negative about the next party. They were there once upon a time, and it was because they were unable to reach far in attaining power in one party that all of a sudden they went to another party or they created their own. And that doesn't really appeal to me as somehow being a person of integrity. Trini Utaf says the topic that we discussed today is local government, the public service, and the police. Yeah, I'm good, fellas. Michelle Sudan, that's true, in the sense of the tribalism in Trinidad and Tobago locking us into the PNM-UNC dichotomy. But the reality is, it's not just a Trinidad and Tobago thing. It's kind of the default of our voting system. The first past the post system kind of inevitably leads to a kind of two-party system. If you look at probably the majority of democracies across the world, that's kind of what they do. If you don't want that, you're going to actually have to do you're going to have to actually engage various other techniques to attempt to weed that out. The problem is that at the moment the people that are benefiting from it are the people you are hoping would change it. So I mean, that's quite a hope, that you hope the government changes things to benefit them less and benefit us more. Like, that's quite a hope. Whoa, Australian, what's going on, bro? Down under. Woo. What's going on? But, you know, we're talking, unfortunately, about crime. Hope I give up. Well, I always say that's not where my hope is, and I regularly talk about that. My hope isn't in a politician. I don't see it as being hopeful that someday we will go to the ballot box and vote for the right politician who is going to be sworn in at the president's house, and they're going to come in and save the entire country. That's not where my hope lies. I don't see that happening. What do you think a third party needs to do to stand a chance? I think a third party that had a reasonable chance was the COP. But the problem with the COP is they were too impatient and too greedy. They joined the UNC, and then the UNC basically swallowed them and destroyed them as a third party force. You see, Trinidad has some problems in the dynamics of our political system that makes a third party a unique thing. For a third party to really form, very likely, you need to come out of the UNC base. you need to be able to pull away the UNC's 16 safe seats. That's the problem right now, and I always talk about this. I think the problem in Trinidad and Tobago right now is the UNC has too many 100% sure safe seats. That's the problem. You want a third party in Trinidad, you have to find a way to break up that. You see, even if you could break up that UNC safe seat business, then the PNM less safe seats, because believe it or not, although the PNM has been in power for a longer period of time, they have less safe seats. It seems pretty obvious that a lot of the seats that would go PNM, if given some combination of options, they're willing to go another direction. So that's what I think is what you really want to do. If you want to get a third party to work, you're going to have to break it out of the UNC, and the COP had an opportunity to do that. I think if the COP stayed by themselves, they didn't join into that partnership, maybe to come 2015, 2020, the COP would have actually been a reasonable force to contend with. But unfortunately now, the cop is the corpse. What you gonna do? Night Lauren Joseph Room says, unless we are building communities and creating positive movement, I agree with that. The UNC has no safe seats though. COP and Jack Party showed that. That is not true. The COP didn't win any of the UNC seats, and Jack's party only won, really and truly one of those seats. And they won that seat because it was considered an internal strife. Tally Frank, I am not asking about this. This information isn't questionable. The PNM has lost every seat except for 1 or 2, and that's, I'm talking both local and general election. The same cannot be said of the ULF UNC. And I mean, you don't need to take offense over the fact. If you are a UNC supporter, that's fine. You can be a UNC supporter. But still, the fact remains that the UNC has the most solid base in the country. That's raw fact. That's reality. And if you want to find a way to get a third party in there, I think that's where you really need to tackle. That's the main issue there. And it's a difficult thing to do. It's a difficult thing to do in the Trinidad and Tobago political landscape. The nature of how Trinidad and Tobago politics works, it makes it very difficult to do. But yeah, unless there are further questions on that, I was actually talking about crime and Morvant and the PNM area of Morvant, and how it seems to me like some of this is due to the politics of the area too. I don't think you could separate it from the politics of the area. I don't think you could separate the crime from the politics of the area, from the policing of the area. All of that goes together. The entire culture creates what you're seeing here. But let's jump into the article and see if we could build this story a bit here. Family targeted over greed, jealousy, firebombing of murder victim's mother's house. Greed and jealousy. These were the reasons relatives of Renal Victor was killed on Tuesday near the Kwesi in Samoa gave as to why Victor was shot dead and his mother's Morvant house firebombed on Wednesday. Speaking with the Express yesterday, relatives said they had been made aware of the report, in which police said Victor's killing and subsequent attack of his mother's home were because of a gang war for CPEP contracts. They claimed it was not so. Anika, yo, what's up? They claimed it was not so. But when they were asked why the family was being targeted, one relative said it was out of greed and jealousy. It's simple right now. We have things, we have a lifestyle, and they're not getting any. So they have targeted us as a result. It was out of greed and jealousy. Everyone is saying it's because of this and that and giving their opinions, but it's all just lies as far as we are concerned. That's what the family says. And you know, there are observations that could be reasonably made here. And you know, you're not being overly critical of people, but yeah, there are observations that could be made. Is it a CPEP contract business? How lucrative are CPEP contracts? Because even in the statement of greed and jealousy, it seems to insinuate that there's a upscale luxurious lifestyle that some people may be envious of. Are CPEP contracts creating that? The family also called on police to work quickly to bring the killers to justice and to find the people who torched the home on Wednesday morning. However, senior police officials informed the Express that from their information, the uptick in violence in the area was due to gang leaders waging war over CPEP contracts. Victor was fatally shot in San Juan. We know this. He was the brother of an alleged gang leader. Police confirmed the ongoing conflict between the gang leaders currently in jail on murder charges. Multiple people were hit inside of that. And this is why I say, I had friends who got CPEP contracts and they left. They and their families were threatened. They left it due to those threats. Yes, it seems pretty common that CPEP contracts are often linked with less than savory activities. And this is why I say regularly that it's crime that leads to poverty much more than poverty leads to crime. It's not that poor people just automatically wake up a morning and decide to become criminals. It's generally speaking that criminality creates a blight in a region. It creates a geographical blight that makes it difficult to actually increase your wealth. Listen to this. Morvant community, a virtual ghost town after home firebombed. Second Caledonia, Morvant was a ghost town on Thursday when Newsday visited, a day after 10 gun-toting men firebombed the home of a murder victim. The area was usually busy, said the one or two people brave enough to speak with Newsday, especially as it was the July-August vacation. Newsday saw one child in the street and she was on her way to the shop. The two people who spoke said it have eyes all around when asked why the place was so quiet. Tell me, why should that be? In Trinidad and Tobago, in a community where everyone knows this is the community where the action is going on, the residents are more worried about the hills having random eyes than police being in the community securing things. A few streets away from where the home was torched, Newsday noticed a street chained off and a young man with a t-shirt tied around his face standing guard. What? What is going on in our country? Is our police service non-existent? There are streets, public streets, chained off, and youth men with jerseys wrapped over their face guarding the streets. In Trinidad and Tobago, and our police commissioner is refusing to give answers. Yep, lack of strong men in a home leads to gangs who demand 100% loyalty. I agree. On the social side, I agree. A lot of this is lack of masculinity, lack of men in homes in those communities and all of that. But on the wider social side, on the countrywide side, we can't supply fathers to every home. That's not how the country works. What is the general country's duty in that case is to make sure that if these gangs do attempt to rear their heads, that the police ensure that they are pounded out. So how can a street be chained off and cordoned off and guarded in our country? How is this happening? And come on, bro, you know. I don't know. I would hope a police could answer this for me. How is it that we could have an area that is the focal point of social media, of of traditional media, of everyone knowing, okay, this is where a lot of the action in the country is going. A media house goes into the area and they are seeing streets chained off. Is this Port-au-Prince? Is this Haiti? Is that where we're going with this? Now, there seems to have been some kind of something resolved, something kind of somewhere inside of this, where the police did apprehend some people apparently. Cops net 11 in Morvant firebombing probe. A series of searches and anti-crime exercises in Morvant from Thursday morning into the night led to the arrest of 11 men, as police continue inquiries into the firebombing of a home belonging to the relative of a reputed gang leader earlier this week. On Wednesday morning, at least 10 men, we know that they firebombed the home. 5 people were in the house at the time, but no one was hurt. Police said the incident was linked to an ongoing gang war. So 11 people were held by police, apparently. This is Trinidad, eh? Chinese Douglas says El Salvador approach might work. And, you know, I've been talking about some of this, and I don't know how far down the El Salvador line people may want to go. But here's why I could see some point in the El Salvador approach. Because if you're talking about general running of a country, if you're talking about just generally running a country, law, legal, making sure things run in order and all of that, fine. Then you don't want to transgress people's rights. But if there's a war going on, like if, as I made this example before, if Barbados decided to attempt to raid Tobago, really kicking off this war over the flying fish business, then as you wage war between Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados, you don't treat the warring combatants with the same legal protections as you would a regular citizen. They are your warring enemy. Now, if you look at how some of this whole thing is going on in this country, there's a subculture that accepts criminality where there could be entire groups that are okay with the guys doing their criminal activity. I was looking at a team of young men that were committing home invasions. They went down to Central, then they went somewhere in the Warren area, beating up old men, dragging old men all about the floor. And it's a group of them, multiple of them. And when they steal the television and the money and all of that, they're going back to their homes somewhere. And someone is going to make dinner for them. And someone is going to hug them up in a bed and sleep the night with them. And someone is going to line with them in the morning. And someone is going to drink the alcoholic drinks that they stole. And someone is going to smoke with them. They have a community that is tight-knit around this criminality. That is functioning basically like a Viking raiding party. It's like we have a village, a Viking village in different parts in our country with a warring Viking city-state nation that is waging war against the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And you could question then the El Salvadorian kind of the El Salvadorian kind of approach, where you don't treat them as citizens with legal rights, but you treat people as a warring enemy nation, and the way you would treat warring enemy combatants. Now, I am talking on a theoretical point of view. I am not saying this is necessarily the solution, but yes, I do remember, Mr. I do remember. But you could wonder if this might be the kind of solution we need in this country. Because locking up the gang leaders seems to not be working. Because according to the police are saying this, by the way. This is news coming from the police. This incident is being orchestrated by two warring gang leaders who are both being held in the MSP. In case anyone doesn't know what MSP means, that's the maximum security prison. Maximum, I mean, I teach some English. Maximum, as far as I know, means the most there could be. So if the most secure person, the most secure prison that we could place men in, they are able to carry out one of the most violent wars against each other, both in prison, from behind prison, begging the police to lock people up kind of feels like it's not going to make sense. Tell me, am I wrong in that assumption? That's how it feels? Now, of course, CPEP says, we don't do that gang contract business, you know. No. We don't give contracts to gangs. No. Jaron VC says them foot soldiers real loyal boy. Well, it's not hard to see how that could work. It's money. It's money and hierarchy, not just loyal, afraid also for their lives. I don't think that these gang leaders have 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old boys killing people every day and night for them just out of fear for their own lives. No, it's loyalty. It is loyalty. It is loyalty, and they are loyal to their group. And I think especially the pandemic, and I've said this before and I'll keep saying it, I think the pandemic and what we did in response to the pandemic with schools was a recruitment boost for gangs. Young men in troubled communities away from school for 3 years on end. You're not getting that generation back. And when their parents would have been still trying to do things to make money, single parents in many of those cases, they're left to their own devices. They're liming with each other either way. It's already just a group of them. All it needs is the charismatic leader to point all of that energy in a useful direction. Young men are kind of made to work in a hierarchical unit structure. It works perfectly with young men. That's why young men fit so well into cadets. They fit so well into military, and they fit so well into gangs. The psyche of young men is perfect for that kind of hierarchical structure. Perfect. And we had the perfect storm of ingredients to boost a lot of these gangs. So the gangs got a boost. It seems obvious to me that these gangs aren't struggling for membership. These guys aren't struggling for membership. If 300, 400, 500 gangsters dying per year and it doesn't seem to be hitting a dent on their population, they aren't struggling for membership. They're using their foot soldiers like they're replaceable. That's the way they're using their foot soldiers. And I mean, you hope that at some point in time, one of these young men get the understanding that that's how they're being used. You are basically a reusable, disposable resource for these gang leaders. Some of them who are literally as protected as they could be sitting inside of prison, and your lives are being lost on a daily basis. That is it. And probably you hope that a young boy would be able to get that lesson, but many of them trapped into that psyche, feeding on a diet of that day in, day out, they're not going to see that difference. They're not seeing that difference. CPEP, no contracts given to gang leaders. The CPEP company has distanced itself from claims that that it issued a contract to a man which sparked gang violence in Morvant, resulting in 2 murders and a house being firebombed. The fight for the spoils of the contract is alleged to be the motive behind the murders of Reynald Victor and Keston Alves. We know what went on with them. In a daily newspaper that allegation was made. CPEP in its release said internal checks by the company confirmed that none of the persons mentioned in the newspaper article are in receipt of any CPEP contract. The public is asked to report any information on gang activity within the program to the company as well as the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Right. Michelle Sudan says our culture in Trinidad, wine and jam music is violent and overtly sexual. No wonder we're losing. Michelle Sudan, I don't know if you were here coming down to the end last night, but I believe it was Trini Hotep was making a point about degenerate behavior, and someone was basically saying that nothing is wrong with that. It's all, you know, relative cultural. It's personal and fluid. They very well know subcontracting is what's going on. They said no, but Lyndon Smith, they said that no, there's no subcontracting going on in CPEP. No, none at all. That's what the service said. There's no subcontracting going on. And this is the part that shows the political connection in this too. Because going on from that, Hines, our Minister of National Security, said no contracts from cabinet. Hines distances government from CPEP projects following surge in gang warfare. Government does not issue CPEP contracts to gangs, but if any state enterprise does so, they will be held accountable. National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines has said. Listen to this. That region in Morvant there is represented at the local government level by the PNM. It's represented at the general election constituency level by the PNM. The government of the day is the PNM. The Minister of National Security is a PNM. The CPEP board that would be controlling the whole state enterprise would be appointed by the PNM. Do you think that the PNM machinery in the Morvant region has no idea that contracts are being awarded to reputed members in gang business? Like, really? You think the PNM in a PNM constituency with PNM local government representatives, a PNM board of CPEP, has no idea about who gets the contracts? And, you know, the funny thing is, in one of these Newsday articles where they took a picture of the house that was firebombed, you could see plain as day in front of the house a whole layout of construction and roadwork material seeming like a CPEP gang kind of material. So it's kind of obvious that there is some kind of construction connection there. And if CPEP was serious about being involved in being a solution for this, do you think it would have been impossible for them to investigate? Okay, the name that was given in the article, we can't find that name, but I mean, we know relatives of the person, we know acquaintances and known affiliations. All right, we know where that is. Come on, if they were serious about that. Hines went on. Hines admitted that the information coming to him was that the incidents were as a result of ongoing gang activity involving people in the area and those who might be elsewhere. Now, again, the Minister of National Security. If I was the Minister of National Security and my party was the representative party for a region here, and this is what is going on in the region, whose responsibility does the prison service fall under? Whose responsibility does the prison service fall under? To be speaking about this like, I am just a regular member of society. I am hearing about all of these things and, they truly disturb me too. This is disturbing information to me too. You're supposed to be the one that makes these things not be possible. From all the information available to me, Hines went on, that event had absolutely nothing to do with any CPEP contract. Nothing. Absolutely nothing to do with that based on the reports made known to me by the police. This is Hines saying this. However, he noted, if young men in a community would get to that level of extreme violence over the issuance of a CPEP contract, assuming that it was so, that would have been doubly heartbreaking to me. When one considers the number of opportunities that exist in Trinidad and Tobago, whether it is in academics, sport, business, the professions, there are so much opportunities available to everyone who wants to come hither to earn and learn rather than to burn down anybody's house over a CPEP contract. And I think this is a telling piece of information. Yeah. This is a telling piece of information. And I think this tells where a lot of the problem is in criminality. Mr. Hines says it. There are so many opportunities in Trinidad and Tobago, and I agree. Trinidad and Tobago is replete with, we're overflowing with social programs and help and one thing or the other, this or that, to help people that are in that dire need. You need a job, you could get a job. You need a little training, you could get training. You need a little certification, join CCC. If you're between the ages of 18 to 25, join CCC. There are just so many programs all about Trinidad for all sorts of things. And yet, a program like CPEP that is made to alleviate some of these problems creates more of these problems. Instead of using the program to work and make money, they use it as a racketeering scheme to further their criminal enterprise. Now, you understand then, yeah, that I saw that Michelle Sudan, and it's reputed that those 5 men may have belonged to one of the gangs involved. I heard that before I started the live. But yeah, it's scary. But that's how those things end. That's how it ends for nearly all the guys involved. If you look at the gangsters, there are very few of them who make it into their 40s, and then you look at many of the times you make it into your 40s and you still mightn't live through it all. So the end for it is very often murder. Regularly, when you see those videos of a guy running down another guy shooting them, that guy who is doing the shooting, very often you wait long enough and you would see him on the being shot end of another video just like that. It's the cycle of that. It's the cycle of that. It's just how it goes. But if the opportunities that are being created and given are being used to just further criminality, is the solution more social programs? Is that where the solution is? Listen down to the end here. Hines appealed to young people to stop criminal behaviors. He reiterated that the country had a tremendous number of opportunities for the youth to develop into law-abiding citizens, to earn without preying on people. These young people have to be encouraged. And one of the things we are doing in treating violence as a public health concern, trying to create far more positive pathways for these youngsters so they will not see the need to behave in those ways. Now tell me, does that make sense to anyone? This man just said we have so many programs and still the youth are doing this thing. They're involving themselves in criminality with us having so many programs. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to treat crime as a health problem, and what we need is more pathways so the criminals don't turn to criminality. They don't need more pathways. Every new pathway you create for them, they're using that pathway to further their criminal enterprise. They don't need a health minister. They need the law to be enforced. Hines said, when young men see an open gate, they should be motivated to close it and protect their communities. He said, I call upon them to cease and desist from that criminal activity and look around and make use of the tremendous amount of opportunities. If only such calls worked, Mr. Hines. If only such calls worked. You see, for me, I think criminality has to be dealt with as you deal with criminality, by getting rid of it. Separating law-abiding citizens from people who want to behave criminally minded. I think it's a no-brainer. Nothing is going to stop until Customs and Guard and Coast Guard do their jobs. You know, I don't think it starts with the Customs and Coast Guard, because you could bring in 1 billion guns into the country. I think if people have their legal firearms, for one, the robbery side of that is going to behave itself in due time. And the reason people are killing each other isn't just because they have the guns. They're killing each other because they get away with it. They could have had 1 billion guns. If they knew that they were going to be caught after the fact, the murder makes less sense. If they knew when they get caught and they're locked in prison, they're locked away in prison. There's no internet. You don't get to put a data plan. You don't get to cruise TikTok while you're sitting down inside maximum security prison. You are actually locked away. That would be a deterrent. And those things don't even have to do with the customs and border control. I think stopping guns getting into the country is actually the most difficult and probably impossible task. Jail is a big liming spot. Well, jail is a liming spot because we have created it that way. That's not the default setting for jail. Even if you allow people to lime with each other in jail, at least don't allow them to telephone out. Basic. When you're in jail, you're in jail. Basic. But that's not the case. And that's why we are in the problems that we are in right now. I don't think it's a gun problem. And I think, as you know, Rome was talking the other night about distractions. I think the focus on guns are a distraction. The focus on guns are a distraction. Where They talk about the CARICOM meeting is about guns, and we're talking to the United States, so try to stop allowing the guns to be smuggled into Trinidad and Tobago. And you look at the United States, and the United States has Illinois, which has pretty strong gun restrictions, and the city of Chicago in there, which has pretty strong gun restrictions, and they have a lot of illegal guns in there. Same thing with a lot of their other big cities. Baltimore inside of Maryland, they have gun control laws similar to Trinidad and Tobago, where you need to be licensed to have your gun. Criminals still get the gun. If they can't stop the smuggling inside of their country, I think it's a fool's hope that somehow the big bad United States is going to stop the AR-15s and the AKs from coming in through our border. That's not going to happen. If we cannot stop Venezuelans, big human beings with crying babies, from getting into our border illegally, how do you think you're going to stop an inanimate black object just a couple feet long from getting in? That's not going to happen. Why would criminals do day jobs or run business if they can do work for 1 hour crime and get more money? Exactly. It's an incentive basis, and the incentive is there because our law enforcement is lacking. We need to marry social and legal rehabilitative justice. Yes, but I think even before we think about social, we need to fix the legal. Listen. Even if you rehabilitate no one, you just lock them away and keep them away from general society, it would work to reduce crime. It may not work for the benefit of those people's own mentality, but if they go mad locked away in the prison, they go mad locked away in the prison, not bothering the rest of society. And okay, I granted that's callous and it's not the ideal way to deal with other human beings. So maybe once we get them locked away, maybe we see what could happen. But I think the most important thing is the locked away part. I think so many times people focus so much on the social side, and these people need help and they need love. Okay, ease me up. We need peace in the country first. So you need to get the criminal elements out of the general society. Last year, 2022 murder conviction rate was, I believe, 12%. They do it because they can. I always say this. I say this regularly. Like, people call for the hangman's noose and hang people high. It's not hanging is the problem. I've said this before. If everyone who does a murder knows that, okay, you will get away with the murder because it's hard to stop someone from killing someone in the moment, but every person who murders someone is going to be caught. If that was the case, the murders would stop. The reality is, I am pretty confident the vast majority of murders are actually done by not even that many people. It seemed to me that the same vehicle that did murders in San Juan one day, it seemed like that same vehicle, when you look at the video, it seemed like the same vehicle was out there in St. James another day doing some more murders. Sometimes it could be 4 people killing a couple hundred. But Nathan, locking people up without trials for 10 plus years is not justice. Until that is fixed, we would see retaliation. Yeah, that's why I said that. I agree with that. The problem is on the legal side. That's not only a police problem, as I've said many times before, because most of the people who are known as bad men, who are known pests in a community, almost all of them have some legal matter pending, and they're out nonetheless. So it's not just a police lockup matter, it's a legal matter. I agree. And it's not that easy to rectify some of those legal matters. That's why you understand why it's tempting to go down the El Salvador route, where, you know what, we ain't looking to build cases here. You all are enemies of the state and we will treat you as such. It's very tempting. To me, one of the primary things in a country like ours, I think you need to allow citizens to start to be able to protect themselves. I think, and I will maintain that. And I know many people are sure that it's going to cause chaos but the country is already pretty chaotic. You look at what was going on in Spring Village. 8 men roaming your community with guns. The only reason they could do that is they are confident nobody in any house in this community could do us anything. Those are the firebombing of the home in Morvant. There were 5 people home inside the house that was being torched. If Trinidad had legal firearm ownership, I could assure you those 10 men were not going to just be standing in the open outside of someone's house throwing Molotov cocktails in. That was not going to happen. There's a need for systemic change to address the legal system. The question is, who would do it? Good question. The political class don't want citizens to be legally armed. No, they don't. And that's the reality is that's what will happen. I look at over in Arima, there was a shooting that happened this morning, and some kind of mix-up happened in the process of the business, and one of the shooters was left by his getaway drivers. The residents had no guns, but the suspect is in critical condition in the hospital. I don't know if he will make it. He's in critical condition. His face looked properly rearranged. But Nathan, Trinis and guns, I am afraid to see people get killed in traffic. We little ignorant. I don't think so. I think we are ignorant. I think you would have the rubber mouthers. But bear in mind, an armed society isn't only you with a gun. So someone who has to decide in traffic that they're just going to kill someone else, they are deciding that they're giving up their life. I don't think that would happen as often as you think. Listen, cars are already a deadly weapon. If Trinis were as murderous on the road as that, they would have been running each other over regularly. Okay, you get me angry, I'm going to run you over and murder you for this. The thing is, you won't get away with a murder like that. As a regular man, you have your family home driving, going to the beach someday, and you just get in a bad road rage, and you're going to allow yourself to go to prison for the rest of your life. For that's not, I think we underestimate each other with that. I'm appalled that the COP is silent on the spate of crime. Well, she doesn't want to talk. She says one media house only writes negative things about her, so she doesn't want to talk to them. There are drawbacks to people having firearms. Yes, there are drawbacks, Tony the Ambassador. I agree there are drawbacks, but there are more drawbacks to people not having firearms. Like, you know what this is like to me? This is like we're in a country where only the police and the bandits have cars. And we're all frightened that, you know, if you allow Trinis to get cars, Trinis might speed on the road and there might be yes, there will be accidents. People may die. People do die in accidents. But does that mean that we should not allow cars on the road and only allow the police and the criminals to have the cars? It's a tool. Mass shootings and school shootings is another thing. We already have mass shootings. 5 people were just shot in Morvant. 5 people were just shot in Morvant. Here's the way I think about this. I look at my community and I question myself. Would I feel safer if every home in my community had a gun, or would I feel less safe? And by and large, my answer is nearly always I would feel safer. Nearly always. The thing is, the people in Trinidad who want to do criminality already have guns. I'm always very aware of this. I'm always very aware of this when I'm driving down the road. You're driving down the road and you thinking to get in a bit of road rage with somebody. Bear in mind the four-member team who did the shooting in anywhere that the shooting happens on a regular basis in Trinidad. They are currently on the nation's road in that stolen vehicle, armed to the teeth. It's already the case in Trinidad. They're already those bandits. Daily, you see bandits driving into people's yards and running in their homes because they're sure nobody in this house could do me a thing. I am not saying that there isn't risk to freedom, but I think a person should have the legal free right to defend themselves with the same tools that they're being attacked with. Here's the thing. You could have gotten me to say, no guns in this society. I would have said that if we lived in a society where they could have actually gotten the guns out, but that's not the case. Is there a connection between the increase of guns in Trinidad and the influx of Venezuelans? I don't know. And I mean, I for a very long time now, Trinidadian bad men haven't been struggling to get guns for a long time now. Let's place it that way. GRY says how many issued firearms to citizens have been involved in shootings. Well, that news appears to be up in the air because I heard once from the Minister of National Security that it was 7. But then on a political platform, the Prime Minister gave some kind of insinuations that it's so much more and we don't really have a good idea. And when it's all revealed, then we would know. So I'm not 100% sure. But as for verifiable, the last I heard was 7 in the last 4 years. And 3 of those were suicide. Maybe politicians are afraid those guns are turned on them. 100%. Nearly every country in the world where they're afraid of citizens having guns, that's the real fear. It's not, they don't care about citizens killing each other that much. Isn't that obvious to you? Do you think the government is so much caring about what citizens do to each other? I don't. Thank you, Michelle Sudan. Thank you. Ginger, garlic, and turmeric tea. Vitamin C and D. Thank you. The guns that's here not made in Venezuela, AR-15, are made in the US. Yes, they are. But they could be smuggled in through Venezuela. So there is that possibility. But as I said, I don't think the criminals have been lacking guns for a long time now in Trinidad and Tobago. When I hear the police boast about they seized 10 guns here or 5 guns here or 3 guns here, I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me. This doesn't make sense. When they catch one random barrel in one of those ports that come in, one random barrel has 15 AR-15s. Like, these guys are not struggling for guns. When you watch how they shoot, when they shoot someone and you see the murder scene had something like 50 spent shells, these guys aren't struggling for bullets. Bullets aren't a rare commodity. Guns aren't so rare out there. It's not a rare thing. True, but the likelihood of a mass uprising is slim to none. You think so? That's not true, I think, Tony the Ambassador. Bullets cheap, huh? All right. Yeah. People are still in the recovery. As I have to go work out Michelle's recipe there. I have the ginger. I think I have some saffron out back. I think the day we do rise, it would be violent. I hope not. I really do hope not, because generally speaking, violent uprisings, the resulting fallout isn't positive. Very often, what happens after the violent uprising isn't a positive thing. Yeah, Missy woke up, but then she went right back to sleep. Yes, Alien. Yes, Mr. Alien. We're like a volcano building. One of the benefits with Trinidad and Tobago is we're still a wealthy country. We're still a wealthy country, and by and large, rich people don't riot. That's kind of the rule. Rich people don't riot. And regardless of how people say it in Trinidad, like we're eating grass and Trinidad is so bad, the reality is the average Trini is relatively wealthy. Leora, Liora, Leora, or Lily, For sure, Lily, for sure. But yeah, we're a wealthy country. So because we're a wealthy country, it's difficult to actually see the riots. For one, if you're rich enough, you'll just leave. I'm booking my ticket to Guyana in case. Yeah, wealthy people, for one, would just leave. They don't need to riot. They could go somewhere else and still live a nice, peaceful life without risking rubber bullets and tear gas and all this bacchanal. And then if your life is good enough, what's tempting you to disrupt it in that way? It's not very tempting to turn your life upside down if your life is going relatively good. So rich people don't riot, and Trinidad is still relatively wealthy. If Trinidad starts to see a much more difficult economic situation, then you get to see things different. Look at the riots in London and France. Well, that's more of a demographic riot when you're talking about France. And in France's case, by and large, France doesn't need much of an excuse to riot. But then those are more of a demographic riot thing. So if as one of our commentators in the chat recommended, we bring in 750,000 Venezuelans into Trinidad and Tobago, and then in the next 10 years, when some of them have children, and then we know how some Trinidadians can be very xenophobic and they're treating the Venezuelans as second-class citizens, but there are so many of them in the society. Well, even in a wealthy country like ours, you could see something like that bubbling up into a kind of riot. You already see some Venezuelans acting when pressure is put on them. You see some Venezuelans acting like they would really like to engage in a little protest out there. So, for example, that's how you could have that France and London and European style protest. If we squeeze down the Venezuelan population in Trinidad and Tobago to a very significant extent for an extended period of time, and they are large enough, which it seems like they might be, you could end up seeing some riots in that kind of case. But even in Trinidad and Tobago, still with the Venezuelan population, that might be a little different, because Trinidad and Tobago doesn't generally have that as bad, negative, denigrative view of the Venezuelans. Like, there may be some xenophobia in that, but it's not like we see the Venezuelans as racially inferior as some Europeans might have to their minority groups. So the racial friction is a little more inside of there. Damian Clayton says you need to form a party, bro. I don't know about that. Michelle says maternity hospitals are filled with immigrants. I saw people displeasure with their kids in local schools. Yes. But the thing is, by and large, our government and our advanced society, the higher levels of our society seem to be very welcoming and receptive to Venezuelans. By and large, the friction happens among the common population more. If you see from a structural point of view, much more Venezuelans get downtrodden, then you can see that kind of riots. But as I said, wealthy people, rich people don't riot. That's the thing. Rich people don't riot. I don't think it's xenophobic, but access to resources. I agree. That's why when I said xenophobia, I said xenophobia, because like I saw some people disagree with the judge's ruling, where the judge ruled that the UN Human Rights Refugee Council business cannot just be blanket used in Trinidad and Tobago. But that seems obvious. If you look at the amount of refugees coming out of Venezuela, there are 7 million recognized UN refugees. So if we are to subscribe to that international protocol, then 7 million people are supposed to just automatically be able to settle here by default due to some international law. That's ridiculous. It doesn't work like that. And most of those people at the top of those global NGOs are living luxurious lives somewhere tucked away in the Swiss Alps somewhere. They don't have to struggle for apartments. They don't have to struggle for farming jobs. They don't have to struggle for construction sector jobs with the immigrants. So many of these people have no care for other people's problems, and they would call it xenophobia, while it's just a legitimate worry about legitimate grouses in society. So I agree. Many NGOs stop giving to locals and focus on refugees. This causes problems also. Agreed. Boy Scout says rich people don't riot and roll around in church because they're demon possessed. Okay, I saw that meme, Boy Scout, that the person was like, I never saw a rich person roll around in church demon possessed. And I would say that person That person has no knowledge about about churches at that level, because there are many churches at that kind of what you'd call that, just at that level, just of that view. There are many churches of that view with wealthy people who roll around just like that, and it's such a myopic limited view of those things. And some of that comes from the view that somehow religion is only being used to control the poor people and the rich people. That's not the only use of religion. Like, come on, man. Actually, don't just buy into some of those things. Like, actually look at it. There's barely resources for us. How is that going to work with even more in the system? Yup. Lucky Fredo says, call one what? One church where wealthy people roll around? I'm not going to call a church's name for that, but I'm telling you that churches who believe in spiritual exposition like that have wealthy people in them. Like, so do you think that all spiritual Baptists are poor? Do you think all Shango Baptists are poor? Do you know how the worship of Kali goes on? Do you know the exuberant worship in many other religions that have wealthy people involved? Like, come, a lot of this is what it does is it displays people's blatant ignorance in some of these things, where you speak with great confidence of these things that you have literally never read one book, one article, one study of. Jeez, man. Venezuela is totally failed and many people are still looking for a way out. That's correct. Some of them wealthy because they're rolling on other spiritual things. Another topic. I'm not going to lie, Nathan. I feel like they're taking over. In some places, it does have that feeling. And you can't blame a Trini for feeling like that. I know sometimes you go into a little... What is stereotyping, Cardell? Sometimes you go into a little nook or cranny inside of Trinidad and Tobago and you look and it looks like everybody in that little village is a Venezuelan transplant and you feel some type of way. You do feel some type of way. I don't know if you want to call that xenophobia, but I mean, countries, people have a right to want to retain the people and nationality and culture that they have. I don't think that's an insult. I think the Venezuelan population will help change the racial dynamics of TNT next 30 years. The Venezuelan population has already changed the racial dynamics of Trinidad and Tobago. Not next 30 years. It has already happened. There are already many Venezuelan children. Oh, his view on religion. Yes, it is stereotyping. It's true, a lot of leeway given to Venezuelans by some. Warrenville and Kunupie at night, check it. So not only Warrenville and Kunupie, you go down to Komoto, you go down to Brazil, some of those remote areas, some of the remote areas in South, you go down in some remote village in South, and then you bend a corner and you go in the village shop and you're like, wow. And I mean, on the Venezuelan side, I'm not blaming Venezuelans necessarily because, like, okay, if I was a Venezuelan and I had a young family living in this country and I'm seeing things going south and I don't think there's anything I could do to rectify this, maybe if my name was a Venezuelan name and I was born over there, I mean, I have grandparents that came from there, I may have tried to escape too. I may have tried to come to Trinidad too. I don't necessarily blame the Venezuelans because I understand the situation. But at the same time, I don't necessarily blame the Trinis for not wanting to take everybody at the same time. GSF Gauge, I've answered that, yes. You should see Crown Point, Tobago. Yeah, but yeah. And what does this mean for our elections? I don't know, Miss Sudan. I am not 100% sure. It will be interesting. It will be interesting. It will be interesting. And the thing is, it's not just that Venezuelans are coming in and staying in their own in-group. There are many Venezuelans who have already married Trinidadians. And there's already a generation of half Venezuelan, half Trinis out there. That's going to be a bit of a change in the demographics in Trinidad and Tobago. And then in the case where, like, I don't know how many of you know this, but there are squatting Venezuelan villages in some remote little cane fields in Central. I don't know for any other area because I am a Centralian. I know about my remote cane fields in Central. Sorry. And there are remote squatting Venezuelan villages in some of those cane fields. What's going to happen in a couple years when those villages kind of cement themselves and you have a fully Spanish-speaking village that was a squatting center in some remote nook? What do I mean by that? I mean that in central Trinidad and Tobago, there are many cane fields that were abandoned when Caroni was left. When Caroni closed down. Caroni shut down. And those cane fields still have many of the old farm roads inside there. And sometimes, you know, I am an adventurous guy, you know, sometimes you go for a drive in some of them and all of that. And you go for a drive in some of them and you would happen upon the end of a road and see 6 galvanized huts with Venezuelans inside there, babies sleeping on mattresses on the ground. I am not talking about something I heard somebody talk about. I'm talking about something I saw with my own eyes. I was taken aback. I did not know this existed. If Americans think like us, a lot of our families would never made a living for others. Well, some Americans do think like us, and by the way, the general way the US did it is the US didn't take any and everybody. If your auntie or nanny or nenen went over there with no qualifications and just was in the people's country, very likely they were hiding in the people's country. They were somewhere in Queens, in Flatbush, in a basement hiding somewhere. Because the US does not want someone that comes into their country and is a weight on their country either. They want to attract all the best out of Trinidad and Tobago and drain us of our brain. That's their aim. It's not just about helping Trinidadians out of the magnanimity of their heart. So, America was built on immigrant labor, right? Well, I mean, the country was built out of people who migrated. So, to an extent, yes. I mean, everyone migrated at some point in time to the US. I see a Venny driving a Hilux yesterday, as I see not all of them come here. For off the Rivulet Road, there's a squatting quarters with about 30 Vennies. Ways eyeballing for land. America is very huge, Trinidad is very small. America's bit, right? Take me, USA, take me. So true, one task kills England and Canada as well. Yes, they do. The US uses Mexican cheap labor to upkeep their rich lifestyle. And that is one factor of the US. There's a serious political faction in the US that does not want them there. They literally wanted to build a wall from sea to shining sea to stop them from coming in. Shalom, Canute. Greetings. And I perfectly understood why. It is not sustainable to run a country on infinite immigration. It's just not a sustainable plan. But the wealthiest people do not care. Because to them, you see, once you're over a certain level, cheap immigration is just a net benefit to you. Once you're over a certain level, you are in a gated community, so the security matters are irrelevant. Your circle doesn't touch their circle. You move around in convoys, you move around in private jets. That's irrelevant to you. And you're on the side where you want cheaper labor, so it's only net benefit for you. fully understand that, but yet in the 80s and 90s, we continue to do the same thing being done here. People complaining and forgot their parents ran America and Canada in the 80s to mind them. For one, I resent that because my parents didn't run anyway. My parents are still very much here in Trinidad and Tobago, and they didn't run anywhere to do anything illegal to support anyone. So I don't stand with that. Also, do you know last year most of the people at the border wasn't Mexicans? Correct. Many people coming to the US border at Mexico are actually coming from other countries because they know that the entrance at Mexico is very porous. Let's not kid ourselves, the US really does not want people of color entering the US. I don't know if that is totally true, that it's a matter of people of color. I don't think that's true. I think the assumptions of US racism are exaggerated. I think if you go to most other countries in the world, you'd recognize that the US might actually be one of the least racist countries in the world. I always find it so marvelous that so many people of color regularly talk about how racist this America, and spell America with 3 Ks, America, so racist, and the moment they get a chance, that's the first place they go. If they could live anywhere else in the world, that's the first place they live. Your actions belie that you don't believe the words that you see. It's a talking point. It's a political talking point. It shows how effective the political talking point coming out of the left in the United States is. It's a very effective talking point. The migrants flatten the wages of the young and unskilled, correct? Gated communities have been compromised already right here in Trinidad already, so they should care. It's true, racism in India and even Africa quite prominent. Bro, prominent is a joke. It's recognized. It's welcome. It's the norm. The difference in the West is they see racism as a bad thing. In most other places, they see racism as just par for the course. The history of the world is a racist history. That's how people functioned. This idea of multiculturalism and the melting pot business is new. It's an experimental way to do things. But they do help with manufacturing, construction, and services, correct? I want to go to Switzerland. They're very racist there too. Classism in India, I think, more than racism. Well, classism that is within Indians, inside of India. But if you are another race than Indian in India, you would recognize that racism is very much alive too. It's not just the classism. I have witnessed a lot of racism between locals. Yes, there's a lot of racism between locals. You see, I don't buy the thing like racism is the most deepest, darkest, evilest, worst sin that anybody could ever commit anywhere else in the world. Colorism, not racism in India. Ziza, you could have multiple things at the same time. You could have colorism and you could still have racism too. There is... I don't understand how you can say that institutional racism, slavery, redlining. What does that have to do with anything, Dillinger Romeo? Are you saying that the United States... Are you saying the United States was the only place that institutionalized racism, slavery, or redlining? Because, Mr. Dillinger Romeo, I would urge you to take even a brief read of history of literally anywhere else in the world. There are places in the world where racism is still institutionalized. Still. So, the difference with the United States is they focus heavily on their racism, both to condemn it and to use it as a tool in their political game. But no, United States isn't the most racist country that ever existed, not even close. Even China, Asia racism is there, in there will make you cry. Listen, China, they will call you as bad as they could call you on a moment's notice. Explore the origin of the word ghetto, for instance. Yeah, like so, I find a lot of that is an American-centric view of the world. It's an American-centric view of the world. Like they think that everything began in 1776, and that's the only reality the world ever has. When you hear some of the U.S. black people talk about racism means prejudice and power, the definition that they just made up in 2012 or something. and prejudice plus power, and you recognize, well, that definition only works in your tiny little scope that you look at the world from in the American context. In India, it's really based on the color of your skin and your wealth and also your name. It's not only based on that. There are racial differences too, literal racial difference. If you are an African man, even if you are a light-skinned African man with sub-Saharan features and hair texture, go to India and see if you would be treated about the same. I was educated here in the United States. I've lived in the United States for more than 45 years. That's literally the point I'm making, Dillinger Romeo. You have a very American-centric view of racism. I have had over 25 years in the military and experienced very many other countries' level of racism. Okay, which country do you think is less racist than the United States then, by and large? Which country is so much less racist than the United States? By history and everything, which country do you put on that pedestal? Antarctica. Ah, funny, Jared, funny. and that's the thing. I don't believe you. If the United States was the bane of black existence, the place where blacks go to suffer, where America, the KKK is taking over, and it's so you would not have been living there. You would not have spent 45 years there and 25 years in their military fighting for them around the world. Like, that's the irony upon ironies to me. You're boasting about supporting the imperial project that is the United States, that has spread their imperialism all around the world with their military, while attempting to complain about some barely even sniffed about racism inside of the system. Like, the American imperialism has pauperized and murdered people the world over. You're saying that you are an important key piece of that for 25 years, but you know, I am complaining that America has some nebulous racism, something BLM. Really? I think you should invite me to have a discussion with you where America racism compared with I don't mind that. I don't mind that. I don't think we'd have that discussion necessarily tonight, because as Nisi was saying, you know, the live tonight, we on a deadline. We can't go to 1 o'clock again. I don't understand how Dominicans don't realize they are black. Yeah, I really don't buy that. I also feel that you need to be more aware of the type of racism that exists. I was now going to make this point, that when you speak to Americans about racism, they have to try to redefine it and reach it down to a scholarly level, to some kind of technical molecular racism kind of understanding, to try and see the racism between the lines, between the micro racism, between the microaggression, behind the asking you where your family from. It's regularly some kind of technicality to try and understand the hidden roots of racism in a statement here. It's hardly ever somebody watch you and say, hey, N-word, I want you dead, and attempted to do something about it. It's hardly ever that. It's some kind of strange working around. And you ask people for evidence of the structural racism side, and there's no evidence. Redlining was a thing in the United States, but it was literally outlawed. What structural racism is there still? What? Structural means that the very legal structure must have something that creates that racist network. What is there? What is there? I was looking at when affirmative action was struck down recently, and people were lamenting, look, they strike down affirmative action. So how are black people, Jim Crow, is there anywhere that still has Jim Crow laws, Dillinger Romeo? It's literally illegal. So where is the present day, not past tense, present day, current, feeling it right now, structural racism? Yeah, and some people were making the point, hey, they struck down affirmative action, but they didn't strike down the legacy admissions. admissions, and legacy admissions is something like 60% white. 60% of the admissions into colleges by legacy. Is Alabama does not have Jim Crow laws, Dillinger Romeo. Like, go Google, what Jim Crow laws are you talking about? In what name these Jim Crow laws that Alabama and Texas have, or Texas is trying to implement? Which Jim Crow laws are these? Like what? You really list the laws. What are the Jim Crow discrimination against blacks laws that Texas is trying to pass and Alabama already has? What are these laws? I'd be very interested to know. Very, very interested. Okay, stop calling states. Tell me what these laws are. What are these Jim Crow laws? And Ronnie, the problem with this argument that they were making, that the legacy admissions were 60% white, well, whites are 70% of the US population. So if there are 60% admission due to legacy, they're still underrepresented by terms of their number in the population. They're still underrepresented. Like, some people don't understand this kind of population percentage dynamics business. Like, a lot of people don't. Of course, you would have more whites going to college if it's a white majority nation. That's kind of obvious maths. Dillinger Romeo, I really trying to get the answer to these things in Texas and Louisiana. Let's see if you have an answer for these things before I go. If you have an answer to these things. I invited you, Dillinger. I hope you're there. Let's just get a quick answer before I dive out. Dillinger, you coming in, bro? What you say, Jaran? Nathan, you coming down on the avenue after the live, bro? I'm a married man with a sleeping baby. You're trying to get me murdered. You're trying to make me a statistic. You're trying to make me a statistic out here, bro. The avenue, like, even beside the fact of what my significant other may do to me, like, honestly, that has zero appeal to me. Like, for me to be finished with this live, watch my daughter peacefully sleeping, watch my wife peacefully sleeping, see this hour in the night, feel the little sleepiness, and decide I'm going to pick up myself and drive down to the avenue this hour to do what? What could that avenue possibly have for me beside trouble? Jaran, you better not have any married friends, bro. You looking to put people into trouble. Leaving people's house 11:24 in the night. I've gotten too old for this. Dillinger, like you're out, bro. Like, you're not interested in answering that Dillinger. To buy food, Levi Osain says over on Instagram. I feel like some people mightn't buy that excuse. Yeah, I live in Central, I'm living Central. I ain't that hungry. Going quite town to go buy food. Jaran looking for company to give trouble. Is that so, Jaran? Jaran, you out on the half tonight, bro? Maybe we should have a little late show on Fridays, since JT's 2 days later with since it's 2 days after with nothing. married people and single people should be oil and water. Where? In Europe, people is lying Europe. Like normal, reasonable Trinis decide on their own that they're going to lime Europe. Do people do that? I know that there are clubs in Europe, but I always assume that the clubs in Europe don't pertain to me. They aren't. I am not their target demographic. Whatever those clubs in Europe are selling is not what I am buying. Ooh, I am going a Europe club to get free stubborn entry. Stubborn entry? No. I don't like the free stubborn entry policies. Like, why would somebody do this? I don't see the point. I don't see the point. Whatever there is in Europe, I'm good. I'm real good. I'm real good. Like I like my house. My house is a nice place. It's calm. It's peaceful. You know? I could relax. My house doesn't bother me. Staying at home doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't scratch me to stay at home. When I wake up another day and I'm like, oh, I'm home. It doesn't mean like, oh no, I'm home. I'm like, yes, I'm home. When I had something to do and I was supposed to leave and it turns out it gets cancelled and I end up having to stay home, I'm not like, oh no, I have to find something to do because I wanted to leave home. No, I'm like, yes, I get to stay home. I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. 868 vibes in Cuba. Bro, I don't lime in Cuba. Like, sir, Trinidad is not a place to just be liming on the outside. Cuba? No. Cuba is fine. I'm well. Homebody good for health these days. Exactly. Real good for your health. I can't be in trouble there if I was never there in the first place. I'm good. Home nice. You see, these AR-15 high-powered rifle bullets, they travel a very far distance. They go through and through people. Listen, I'm good. I'm good. Rifle bullets are too powerful. What is out there to enjoy? The woman in San Juan, exactly. Peaceful in San Juan early morning and bullet. Nah. I saw in which one that was with Ashley's furniture store there, where some kind of random shooting. I'm looking at the camera footage of this, and the poor waitress is out there wiping a table and bullets passing. Like, so what? Is it illegal to buy a bulletproof vest? Yes, it is illegal to buy a bulletproof vest. The mall with Ashley's and all of that there, some one of those restaurants in that vicinity had a shooting. Someone shut up the restaurant and police were right there, and they were asking if it was police did the shooting or if police were being shot at of. I don't know. All I knew was bullets passed. So I can't buy a gun and I can't buy a vest. No, at least not legally. You can. You cannot. All right, people. It seems like Mr. Dillinger Romeo does not want to back up the statements that he made. We waited a little while and he doesn't want to jump inside the lie. So that's all I have for now. Gonna take some rest. Heartland Plaza. Thank you, Cadel. I'm gonna take some rest, take a little honey and lime or something like that. Drink a little tea. Sip on something. So yeah, I hope you educated, informed, or entertained people as usual. I do enjoy doing this. This was the last one for the week. I hope you guys are going to enjoy your weekend. Stay safe out there. Outside ain't nice. I do agree with that. Outside not nice. Outside not nice. Outside scary and sketchy. Watch it out there. So yeah, I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. This was the Mindful Life. I am Nathan Spring. I will see you guys again for the next one, which is going to be Monday. Until then, people, peace out. You could catch the Mindful Education. I dropped a video on that. You know, I'm talking about some of our teaching practices, how we do this whole learning pod business, the kind of structure we use for intuitive teaching, how we use games, how we utilize games in trying to increase the pattern recognition and memory skills of our students. So if you're interested in seeing what we do, you could look at some of those videos, the Mindful Education videos. I have them over here on TikTok. They're over on Mindful Education on Instagram. You could feel free to register for Java educational camps that we have running throughout the holiday period. We also have learning pods that run throughout the year. We offer homeschooling for those who are interested in such, private tutoring for just about all CXC subjects, also CXC and CAPE subjects. If you are interested in getting some one-on-one private tutoring, you really need that help, that focused tutor that is going to go through these points with you and make sure you catch it. We offer all of that. So if you are interested in any of that, you can hit us up, Mindful Education, or message me wherever you see me. I will see you guys later. Oh yeah, music classes too, every Saturday. If you are interested in that, you can hit us up also. Yeah, so until Monday, people, hold it down. Be safe. Laters.